morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio, and yes, it's April the 1st, and no, we're not doing any of that April Fool's rubbish. It's not fun to just lie and try and make something out to be true when it's not. Boo! Pokemon sleep events, that's a good April Fool's. But, some of the ones I've seen this morning make me sad. What is not an April Fool's is a new Chandelure and a new Milotic, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Literally finished my Japanese lesson, went and checked to see if anything had happened in the interim. It had. There's a new Chandelure, and I needed to translate it. And I did. And as I record this video, I have not seen any other translations for it. I've not checked my translations of anyone. I'm sure it will be fine. For what it's worth, I am sure it will be fine. I feel pretty good about these translations. So, with that borne in mind, let's have a look at Chandelure. Very quickly, we've got a rather lovely combo of Litwick and Lampent. Funnily enough, not by the same artist, though with quite similar styles. The Litwick is search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it on your bench. The Lampent is 2 energy, 60, and you have to discard all energy from this Pokemon. Fine in a pinch. But, yeah, that's all we need to say about that. But then we get to the Chandelure, and the Chandelure is good. What we've got here is an ability that basically says, once during your turn, you can make both players draw a card. You can use the ability once during your turn, both players draw a card. Okay, cool. And here's the thing, right? Drawing a card during your turn, that's a good thing. You want to draw a card. Because drawing cards means, and this is going to sound silly, but I'm going to say it anyway, drawing a card means you have more cards. It means you have more options. You can do more things. Your opponent drawing a card will sometimes backfire. Let's be clear. Sometimes you will let your opponent have a card and they will draw into that thing they really want to draw into. But there are 2 reasons why you might want to force your opponent to draw a card. Firstly, decking out. Like if your opponent's got 1 card left in their deck and you make them draw it, then when their turn starts, they have no cards left in deck and you win the game. Sounds like a plan. But also the attack. Because the attack for a single fire energy here does 30 damage times the number of cards in your opponent's hand. Oh. So you gain a big benefit for every card that your opponent has in their hand. Well, that is a bit of a win, isn't it? And that's the synergy here. Basically, your opponent can try going a 0-card hand if they want to, but the reality is most of the time they're probably not going to. Most of the time, they are going to have a few cards in hand. You make them draw an extra one. There's an extra 30 damage. Job's a good 'un. There are some decks that can play around with things like Bibarel, for instance, here, where they essentially try and work on a 0-card hand and then use something like Bibarel to draw every turn so that they're essentially never leaving cards in hand. That you can do that, but shall we say that's a little bit awkward. I really, really like this Chandelure. I think this Chandelure's cool. It is a stage 2, and I know we say that every time, but we kind of have to say that every time, right? We have to say this every time. Getting a stage 2 out is a pain, and it's awkward, and it's annoying, and boo. But drawing every turn, having a really quite good attack for a single energy, and actually we've got some really good stuff going on here. And of course, if you're playing Chandelure, it's a Pokemon that comes around moderately often. There might be some other options. Like right now, we have 2 other options for Chandelure. We've got the one for Obsidian Flames, single energy 10 plus 50 for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. And we've got the one from Lost Origin, which incidentally does have a character rare, that when you evolve into it, you make your opponent discard the top 3 cards of their deck, which does actually synergize quite nicely with this new one, because of course this new one, you can make them draw a card, so you use the other Chandelure to discard a few cards here and there, and then as they get close to decking out, you make them draw that last card in their deck, and they lose, and then you laugh, and you win, but you do so respectfully, because we're all friends here. And actually, yeah, we've got a few different Chandelure. You can have one that, if your opponent's got too many cards in hand, you punish them. If they've got too much energy attached to their Pokemon, you punish them. And round we go. I like Chandelure, and I'm a big Chandelure fanboy. A lot of my Chandelure fandom comes from the fact that when it came to Pokken tournaments, all I wanted to do was play Chandelure. Chandelure was my guy in Pokken tournaments. So I kind of like this new one. I don't like it if you're not punishing your opponent for drawing, okay? Just to be clear. I think you have to punish your opponent for drawing. So it has to be that you're making them deck out, or that you are taking advantage and hitting more damage because they've got more cards in hand. If all you're doing is getting a card but letting your opponent have one, that's bad. But if you are punishing them while drawing a card and then using a decent attack, well, then we might be able to get something fun going on here. Let's go ahead and give this one a tentative between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. Kind of Pokemon that as a stage 1 would be really potentially good and interesting. As a stage 2, still very interesting. Still got a bunch of potential, but that extra evolution stage does cause a few problems. But it's not the only one that's actually going to be joining us in the new set. We've also got a new Milotic, which is kind of funny because it both helps control and hurts control at the same time. What we've got here is an ability that basically says your opponent's Pokemon in play, as well as cards attached to their Pokemon, cannot be put back into your opponent's hand. And obviously, and then a terrible attack, which we're never going to use. We're using this for the ability, all right? But this is Snorlax. Like, you whack Snorlax in the active, and you whack a tool on there, maybe a Bravery Charm, maybe a Hero's Cape, some tool that is big and beefy and going to make your opponent not able to KO you. You whack this Milotic into play, and then you basically go, you're stuck in the active. But not only are you stuck in the active, I'm now taking away some of the options you would otherwise have had to get this Pokemon off the field and back into your hand. Like Penny, for instance. Penny's a fun one. Penny is a card that lets you put one of your basic Pokemon and all attached cards into your hand. This completely shuts off Penny. Penny cannot be used with this out there. Doesn't work. Isn't going to go. And obviously, you know, Penny is one of the things you would want to do here to try and stop your opponent, to try and slow down your opponent. You would want to use Penny to basically get a Pokemon out the active and then hopefully put something active that can KO the Snorlax. That sounds like a plan. Here's the problem. Obviously, I'm showing you the lovely Okacheke artwork because it's amazing. Here's the problem. Snorlax decks kind of like Penny as well. And this can be used to stop Snorlax basically cycling Penny to make sure that Snorlax never gets KO'd. Now, it is important to say this is a one-sided ability. It is your opponent's Pokemon. So if the Snorlax player were to put this into play, they are protected from their opponent's Penny, but they are not hurt by it. They can be using their own Penny all day long. It's not an even thing. This is hopefully, well, the goal here basically is to try and hurt your opponent, which is kind of fun, honestly. Similar kind of thing going on here with Professor Turo, as an example. The new Professor Turo scenario that puts one of your Pokemon in play into your hand. It's basically better Penny, newer, better Penny. New is always better. And yeah, that's going to come along and help out very nicely. And a Milotic is going to stop this kind of card being played. And this is fun if you're the person playing Milotic. But there's some other fun things it does, because what about attacks that put the Pokemon back into your hand? I'm looking at you, Fish, Luminion. Because, of course, Luminion, Aqua Return, free energy, 120, shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. In a Baxcalibur deck, one thing you can do, and I'm not sure anyone actually does, but one thing you can do is double Fish. And basically just keep using Luminion over and over again, play it, get a supporter, attack with fish, put new fish active, and round we go. Use all of your switches for when Baxcalibur hits the active, otherwise just fish, 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 fish. Well, yeah, that doesn't work. Because it might be an attack that puts it back into your hand. But the thing is, the ability here doesn't really specify anything like that. The ability just says, cannot be put back into your opponent's hand, whether it's with a supporter or an attack or an ability or anything along those lines. I'm not sure how many people are going to play this against Snorlax. How many people are putting this in their deck just in case? And the answer might be some. If it's a really bad match, but you think it's going to help well enough, then yeah. But I absolutely can see some control decks, Snorlax or otherwise, playing this to mess with the opponent. Yeah, this one could see some play. Could see no play whatsoever. Could absolutely be a card that sits in the binder and never comes out. But there is enough interesting stuff here to make me, well, a little bit interested. Also, Feebas has got Outrage. Although, as the lovely Anton Boulay has corrected me, it's not really Outrage, it's Flail. Outrage is for big bad Pokemon. Flail is for little cute Pokemon. But, yeah, 10 damage for each damage counter on it. But it's got 30 HP. Literally 30 HP. Shall we say it's not exactly going to be outraging or flailing for very much. I'm giving this one an extremely tentative 4 Wassies, because I do think there is potential here, but it really comes down to whether anyone's actually going to go ahead and play it. But there's at least potential here, so there we go. But now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about Chandelure. Tell me what you think about Milotic. Tell me what you think about any of this in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And of course, that is where you can get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely James Sierpinski, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.